Hi there, and welcome to another episode of African Business Stories, your insight into female innovators and entrepreneurs building and running businesses in Africa. I'm Akego Koye, and on the show today, I'll be chatting with Ehime Eigbe-Akindele, founder and CEO of Sweetkiwi, a clean label frozen yogurt company operating on multiple continents. We talk about how she left her job at Citibank in the US and started the first frozen yogurt company in Nigeria. As a result of health challenges, she started to split her time between Nigeria and the US. We talk about the journey to launching Sweetkiwi in the US and getting her products into Whole Foods. I am incredibly inspired by Ehime's story and hope you are too. Let's get into it. Hi, Ehime. Welcome to African Business Stories.
Hello, Akego. It's really nice to be here. Excited that we finally got to do this. I know that kind of time was delayed, but I'm excited that we're finally doing this today.
Yes, awesome. I know you were born and raised in Lagos, and I was wondering what your fondest childhood memory was or is.
What's my fondest child? That's very hard. I had a very nice childhood, but it was very insulated, I would say. My dad worked for Guinness, so I would say my fondest childhood memory was always going to the Guinness factory in Ogba and just seeing like how production was done and understanding what goes into making a beer. My dad was production manager for a very long time, and he was in charge of making all the different beers. I remember when Saturn Brown was launching, it was very exciting. They brought the first sample to our house, and I remember my dad putting it in the corner, and I think I pulled it down and the bottle broke, one of those. Yeah, but those were like very fun memories because Guinness was a really good company to work for. When you go pick up your dad, like when I would go pick up my dad, they had a restaurant that was free. So we would go and like pretend like we were going to pick up our dad and then detour into the restaurant and get like free chicken and all these things. And it was just really fun. I mean, Guinness makes a lot of products that people don't really know about. They had like this sparkling water called Spa that was only for employees, families. That's so much. I mean, it was just fun to just see how things work.
That's a fun story. So I know that you did a degree in business information technology and international development. That's quite an interesting combination. And I wondered if there was a backstory to that.
So it was international relations, actually, not development. Yeah, there was. So I moved to the UK just at the tail end of my secondary school, and I started A-level school in the UK. And I was really lost. Like, I felt like everyone kind of knew what they wanted to do. Like, my brother was an accountant. He knew what he wanted to do. My sister was a lawyer. And I was just a bit lost. And I think that's because maybe my parents pushed me into the sciences. And I was lost because I felt like I wasn't good at sciences. Like, all my results from school, I would pass so well, do so well, like have A's in every subject. And then you get to chemistry and physics, and it's like just like a C. And just like kind of, okay, she kind of scaled through the class. So I was very sure that the sciences wasn't for me, but I didn't know what else I could do. So one day, one of my friends at school, her dad was visiting from Switzerland. He used to work for the UN. And so he decided to take us to lunch. She's Gambian. And we went to lunch, and I remember him talking about what he did and how he was making a difference and how he had been posted to all these different places all over the world. And that really resonated with me. Like, I felt like, this is something I wanted to do. I always wanted to make a difference with people. I was very big on volunteering already. So that kind of just listening to him, I can never forget it, because I felt like, oh yeah, this is my calling. This is what I want to be. So when I told my parents I wanted to apply to school and do international relations, of course, you can imagine the outrage.
Right.
It's like, what? Going all the way to London to study, so that was a bit of, they wanted me to do a science, and I felt like this was a way to compromise. And London Metropolitan University at the time was the only school that offered such a compromise, and that's why I chose that, because I felt like I still had a chance to give them what they want while I still kind of got what I wanted.
Interesting. And then when you finished, you moved to the US to work for Citibank. How did you make that move and why?
So it's really interesting because, as the brain of a, I wouldn't say a child, but just being young and trying to connect the dots. So all through my university, I think from my second year, I started working at Amnesty International. So I would
Hmm.
volunteer for Amnesty International because that was the path I wanted to go down. And I always wanted to work for the UN. So I would do all the model UN things at school. I was really, really heavily involved in the international relations department at
Mm,
school. And so moving to the US for me, I thought it was a great way. I just thought it was a great thing because I felt like I worked for City for a while and then I'll find my way back to the
right.
UN. It was just a stepping stone. And then I'll find my way back to the UN in New York. That was the thought process, I think. But then real life
Right.
starts and then you start making money and then you have bills and you have rent and car notes. And then it's just like, things just don't go how you think they're going to go in your mind. And I think because I was in Dallas, it was also hard because there wasn't a United Nations presence. I think I actually applied for every single UN job that I ever posted, whether I qualified or not. I was just applying as long as they had a job post. I'm sure whoever the HR head was probably like, this person just is ready to do anything as long as she works at the UN. Um, but I think what I've learned now in life is that you can still do those things. You don't necessarily have to work for the UN. You can still make that
Right.
difference without actually focusing on one. There's so many ways to reach your
Mm,
destination. You don't have to focus on one body or one institution. So one of the things I did when I started realizing that that dream was slipping away, I started volunteering for
right.
other organizations. So I started volunteering for the International Rescue Committee in Dallas and, just kind of helping refugees assimilate to US life and just doing more. So I was at City and I was just like pushing all these, like, I realized that City had a volunteer program and a volunteer network and so many organizations that they partnered with. And so I just felt like, this is where I
Right.
shine. So it was a great way to start to do the things that mattered to me. And so we were doing things for junior achievements and all kinds of walks. I was always organizing
Right.
something with, we're welcoming the troops at the airport, just something. And then I felt like that actually gave me a
Hmm.
balance with doing the work I was doing and also doing what I always felt like was my calling to do.
That's excellent. So how many years were you with City?
I was a city group for, I would say, about 2 years.
Okay, so I've listened to a lot of your interviews and read a lot of your articles about you, and in a lot of them, you talk about never imagining yourself to be an entrepreneur. So, so what was going on, and how did you start to move towards running your own business, and on top of that, moving to a different country to do it?
Um, Honestly, like I said before, my whole dream was to work for the UN, world peace,
Mm.
help people that needed help. I never ever saw myself as an entrepreneur, which was really strange because now I think back and I'm like, my mom is an entrepreneur though. My mom has her own school. She's a teacher who set up a school. And I guess I never connected the dots and you never think of these things. I just felt like I had my own path. Um, so when I came to Nigeria, my cousin was getting married, and I come to Nigeria, and I remember just meeting a lot of young people, and they were really, just aggressive and talking about, oh, I'm an entrepreneur, like it's Tuesday afternoon, and they're able to do lunch, because that doesn't happen. I mean, if I work at City, I can't do lunch with you until it's maybe my break or after work. So it was just interesting that they were in control of their own time. They were doing so many amazing things. I remember my friend had a birthday party. Well, he was celebrating his birthday, and we all went to the Bahamas, and he had invited a few people from Nigeria. And I met this girl, Lakwe, and she owned this interior company in Nigeria, and they were doing so many amazing things. And I was just looking at her like, what? Like young people, like it just never crossed my mind. I think that's the whole point of seeing representation, right? You don't
Right.
think something's possible until you actually see it. And then something unlocks in your brain and it's like, well, this thing's possible. I remember leaving, not feeling like I still wanted to be an entrepreneur, but just knowing that certain things were possible. So I feel like there were like new lenses. So with that, I went back to my job with a different mindset. And so maybe unconsciously I was looking for opportunities, you know. So when the chance came at the time, how I started Sweetkiwi was that I had this health challenge and I had to change my diet, and I started making this yogurt. And one of the things about my job was that I had a very close team. We were all very close. We would have potlucks and bring our food. I'd make dodo and jollof rice, and you know, one of my favorite foods is okra soup, you know, the mixed okra that we have in Nigeria. So I would take that to work and people would love it. And so when I started making the yogurt as well, I would take it to work, and you know, they'll say, "Oh, you know, can I have some?" And then me and my friend we love frozen yogurt, and then I just thought, you know what, I can do this as a business. You know, and in handling one of the cases that I had to handle, I came across some people who were in the restaurant business, and they really kind of showed me the process. It really opened my eyes to how people can run a business. And initially, I started thinking, okay, maybe I can open my own yogurt place, and I felt like I wanted to do it in the US. And so I went to, I never forget, I went to go register my business downtown Dallas. I registered Sweetkiwi, and on getting there, as soon as I walked out of the registry, I got a call, and the guy was just like, "Oh, I'm calling to speak to Ehime of Sweetkiwi," and I was just like, "I'm calling from Chase Bank, and we're thinking you should, you know, open an account." And I was thinking to myself, "Oh my God, who's watching me?" And it turned out, no, apparently they give you information to all these people who can support you with your business journey. And I thought that was really amazing that, you know, I'd barely even got into my car and someone was already talking to me about all the options they had available for being a small business. So I was starting to just go to different places, source for machinery, just in the process. And then my brother was getting married. And then I had to go back to Nigeria again. And when I was in Nigeria, this time I was in Lagos. So the one I went for my cousin's wedding, I was more in Benin because her wedding was in Edo State. So this time I was actually more in Lagos, and I got to see that there was no other yogurt shop. There was only one ice cream place at that time. Ice Cream Factory was the most popular spot, and then there wasn't anything else. And I wasn't an ice cream person. Everyone would say to me, "Oh, let's go and get ice cream." And I was just like, "No, don't you have frozen yogurt?" Because I don't really eat ice cream. Like, it doesn't fit into what I could eat. I mean, and don't get me wrong, Ice Cream Factory is amazing. It's just I had like specific like dietary requirements that I was sticking to at the time. And so I just thought to myself, you know, why not do it here? I mean, my parents were in Nigeria. I had a bigger family base in Nigeria, and I kind of just coming for these events kind of missed that as well. Just that having family, I hadn't had that in the longest time. I had been away for so long, and so I went back thinking about it. I hadn't decided that I was coming to Nigeria. I was still pushing on with my plans, but I felt like every day I'll be at work, and then I would just be in my mind, just bothered by the thought that I should go to Nigeria, I should go and give this a try. But I was scared, so I think that's why I didn't immediately take the jump. But then,
what year was that?
This was in 2011, and I just realized that, but something in me just wouldn't let me be. Like, there was this thing that was nagging and nagging and nagging, like, just go for it, just try it, and just see how that goes. So finally, one day, I think when I made the decision was I'd started working at a restaurant just to learn how to manage a restaurant. I started working, so I would close work at 4 p.m. and then drive 1 hour was the work because I'd be so sleepy because I start work at 7 a.m. I'd be so tired by 4, and I would drive all the way to uptown Dallas and working a restaurant just to learn how operations will run if you're running your own store. So I'd be there from 5 p.m. My shift was from 5 p.m. to midnight. And then I'd be there just kind of like working in different areas of the restaurant, working as a waitress, working as different angles of the business. But I realized that even though I was so tired and I was so exhausted, the best part of my day was that time, you know, just meeting people, learning more. I was just so much more excited that when I came to my professional work, which was, I'm sure the people who work every day in the restaurant are probably thinking, I wish I had the job that you had, you know what I mean? But I felt like I was more passionate about being in the restaurant and meeting people and just engaging people than when I was working. And that made a decision for me because I realized that I really liked doing that. I really liked the creations. I really liked meeting people. I liked just learning about how things worked. I liked being an entrepreneur, and it was really fun for me. So one day as soon as I was conscious enough to understand what my emotions were trying to tell me or what my intuition was trying to tell me, I made the decision. In fact, I told myself that I was going to work at City continuously, but I still remember the day it clicked, it all came together. I put in my resignation the same day. I used my vacation as my 2 weeks notice. My manager was so upset. We were so close, so he just didn't get it. Like, what are you doing? He wouldn't even like come and say goodbye to me because we were that close. We were a good team and we were all really close, and it was difficult for everybody. And at the time, it wasn't like I wasn't scared. I was so scared because I even didn't know what I was doing. I was just saying that let me just try. And if it didn't work out, I mean, I had a strong enough team and a good enough team that I could always come back.
Right.
And so I put in my resignation, and by the next week I was in Nigeria.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's amazing. So there was no frozen yogurt market in Nigeria.
Not at all.
So you were basically first to market. And I wonder if you can just talk to us about your startup experience, starting up the business with a new product, in a new market. What was that like for you?
Oh my gosh, it was good and bad. I feel like there was the aspect where people didn't know it, so they didn't give it a chance. But there was also that aspect where it was new and people were excited about having something new on their menu. I honestly believe that I did get a lot of support. Just coming to Nigeria, honestly, I didn't know anyone. When I tell people I didn't know anyone, they feel like, oh no, but that's not true. You know so many people. I'm just like, no. When I actually came to Nigeria, I was home all the time. I would created this flyer on like Microsoft PowerPoint. Oh, it's the worst. I wish I could show you the worst flyer, and then I would, be BlackBerry Messenger. I would send it to a few people that I'd met, from just visiting and saying, oh, hey, if you're, anyone who's having a party, we do catering. And trust me, we didn't get any customers. And I was trying to get a shop. I would go visit, like every time they put up a sign to let, it would be just ridiculous. 8 million, 10 million, 3 years, paid 3 years down. I mean, it was just, and I was just thinking, what are you doing? And then I feel like I also got caught up in that initial Nigeria phase where, I came with my best friend when I was coming, and obviously we're partying every day because she knew a few people in Nigeria. And she's like, oh, my friend says, oh, we're going to Cactus today. We're going here today. So you're like, oh, Nigeria is so fun. But then you lose sight of why you're really here. Because that fun is just for a little while, and then as soon as my best friend went back, it was just me, and I was just like, okay, so what now? And then one day a friend of mine had introduced me to someone at Get Arena, and we were talking, and she was just like, oh well, hey, do you want to come do a sampling session here? And I was just like, yeah, okay, we could do that. And then it was LPM used to have these markets once a month where people would come and sell different things. And we came for the market and we were giving people samples, and people really loved the product. There was a long line. People were upset. They were like, stop giving it out for free. We want to buy, So it was just really crazy. And I was really overwhelmed by the response. And right then I think we booked about 2 jobs or weddings. And I was thinking, oh, wow, well, while we're looking for a location, catering could be a real avenue for us to make money. So we started doing catering, but it was on a small scale. I still didn't understand the market. So that's the whole thing where, you have to act global, but think local. Like, how do you get jobs in Nigeria? How do you meet people? And it was really difficult for me because I didn't know anyone. So meeting people here, and then a friend of mine convinced me to come to a WIMBIZ conference. At that time, I think I had a very negative impression of women, like just working with women. I felt like women were very, funny. I don't know. It was just an impression. Like I said, I didn't really know. And so when she said women, I was just like, oh, look, I don't do stuff like that. Like, look, especially the older women, I just felt like, no, they're going to be trying to tell you like your outfit isn't this, you're doing this, or you haven't greeted me well, you haven't knelt down, you haven't, whatever. I just wanted to keep to myself. But she was like, no, come, you make it, like, you'd like it. So I finally showed up. I was sitting next to a lady. I didn't know her. I was just sitting there and they were talking about all these things. And you have to understand, in my mind, I'm just this new person into this new environment. I found everything they said to be funny. So it was context, because for me, I'm just thinking these conversations are so like just, but once again, the conversations was what was relevant to the country. So I felt like there was that disconnect of where I'm coming from, a country that doesn't have these issues that they were talking about NYC. I was thinking to myself, like, but why do you have to do NYC? Like, why are you sending your kids if they're dying? This different conversation. So I would make like funny comments just in relation to what was being said. And the person next to me would laugh and laugh and laugh and laugh. I didn't even know who she was. And I just, make a funny comment or quip, after someone would say something. So at the end of it, she asked me, she was just like, you're so funny. What do you even do? And I told her, oh, I do yogurt and blah, blah, blah. She was like, really? And I showed her the flyer, the ridiculous flyer that I'd made. And she says, oh, come, I have a few people to introduce you to. So she's taking me around all these people. Hey, this is this person. She introduced me to Uche Pedro Belanaja. She introduced me to this lady who was like a big person in catering. She introduced me to a few event planners as well. Funke Bucknor, she introduced me to Funke Bucknor. I was so overwhelmed. And then I later found out that person was Tara Gurotoye of House of Tara. It was very funny. Yeah. How these things. But for me, I was so clueless because I knew nobody and I was horrible. Like, I was just not even, I didn't know, there's no context or anything. But after that, we became friends. And she even gave me one of my first like corporate jobs for Sweetkiwi after that meeting. Right. So yeah, we just started, I started building, you go to an event, you meet a few people, and we started doing just catering jobs and just starting to grow and then we started getting noticed by more people, more corporates. We started doing more corporate jobs as well.
Right.
And that's how suddenly people started talking about us. Oh, do you know Sweetkiwi? Do you know da, da, da? And then LPM decided to do a place called L'Espace, where it was supposed to be kind of like I would say more like a Macy's, where all these different brands have their little different spaces within a big space. And so we decided to get a little space in there. It was in Victoria Island, and we got a space there. So it was really nice because I felt like the people who were the young, fun people in Nigeria liked the brand and they would go there, or they liked L'Espace. So we're getting a lot of attention because we were in L'Espace as well. So they were also very intricate in helping us build the brand because we were in a circle that was really popular in Lagos. So it helped us get the word out, and we started getting more catering jobs from that as well. And we started just being more noticeable. We started building the brand name through that. And I remember finally we got a location in Victoria Island, and the guy had said 8 million, 3 years. And I didn't even know where I was going to get the money at the time, but I think I'd called an uncle of mine that I haven't spoken to in like years. And he finally gave me the money, and I was so happy. I never forget. It was like my birthday. I was all dressed up, just thinking like, finally, I get to have my own space, do it well. I hadn't even gotten to the tour when I got a call from his attorney saying that someone else had made a bid with a higher amount. They were ready to pay 10 million for 5 years. And if I couldn't match it, I should come back and pick up my checks. I would never forget that day because I picked up the checks and I was just, I was crying the whole day. I was just like, could not believe, like completely just heartbroken. And then I think my mom would always say, oh, it's not for you. And I was just like, what does that mean? I put so much into this because I had even started talking to architects. We talked about the design. So that was a really heartbreaking moment for me in the journey. I think I took some time. I went back to America for a while. I was just like, I don't know how to deal with this country and how things work. I just took a little break. I still had a team who were doing the catering, but at that time I didn't know that I wanted to continue because I felt like the dream of having an actual location was gone. And when I finally came back, but even when I was in America, I was missing the business. I feel like, I'll call my staff every day and say, so what happened today? So what happened today? So what happened? And then finally I came back, but I think I came back with a defeated mindset where I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to do catering continuously and I'm not going to try to be bigger than what we are. And randomly, someone reached out to me about a space and in a mall, inside one of those malls where there are like all these little shops. I was so tired. I just wanted a space. So I just said, you know what, I'm going to take the space. And I told my dad, like, hey, do you want to come see the space? I'm going to take it. It's cheap. It's just 3 million a year. They're not asking for that many years. I can do this.
Right.
He comes to see the space and he's just like, can I talk to you? He's just like, oh, I just feel like this wasn't what you told me when you first came. You painted this dream that I fell in love with, and I'm just trying to tell you that this is not what you want. But I feel like you allowed that what's happening on the outside get inside, and now you're not seeing your own vision. And that was so important. The reason I'm bringing it up is because I feel like you should always tell people that dream, because they're people who are going to hold you accountable for it, down the road, because things are never easy. And life can beat you down so badly where you don't even know the dream is just so diluted that you're just ready to take whatever is being thrown at you. When we had that talk, I just remember being encouraged and turning it down and saying, you know what, honestly, it's not for me. It wasn't what I envisioned. And luckily, I still remember my mom saying, oh, well, I passed by this place and, it was there and I think it's good for you. And she was like, but the only thing was that it wasn't for rent, though, it was for sale. I was like, okay, mommy, I don't want to see. I already told her that I'm not seeing any more properties. I can't go through all of that anymore. But she went ahead and spoke to the landlord, and finally she was just like, the landlord wants us to come by and see him. I'm like, but this guy doesn't want to rent. He wants to sell. Like, so why are we, prepping ourselves for another heartbreak because we can't buy? We don't have the money. But I remember she was just like, you know what, let's just go. I have a feeling about it. Let's go. So we went there. We talked to the landlord. He asked me what I wanted to do. We talked to him. And, he says that, okay, if you can pay just literally a small amount, I'll give you the keys. You can start working. And I'll give you time to apply for a loan and you can pay in installments.
Wow.
I laughed because I was just like, this guy's a scammer. There's no way. Just wants to take the little money that I have and then he'll now start telling me stories. I just, because it's impossible. You just don't think that anyone in Nigeria would do that.
Right.
And I was just so skeptical. I was telling my mom, we shouldn't do this. But honestly, true to his word, I was like, look, we have to sign contracts. We have all these things. And he did. He did. And I was really surprised when he handed us the keys and handed us all the documents. I was just like, wait, what's going on? And just like that, we had a location. And it turned out the location was on Admiralty Way, which was, so we kept just doing the instrumental payments. He was so patient. He was so different from any landlord I'd ever met because they're all sharks. And then finally we were able to get support. With my parents were able to help support us with like getting a loan to keep up with the rest of the payments. And finally we were able to do our space and open up what turned out to be our flagship store. And it was just random. And I feel like sometimes you just have to hang in there and just know that there's already a path. And sometimes you have to go through the valleys, before you can get to the mountaintops.
Right. That's such an amazing story. And so again, just to give it context, this is now in 2014, if I understand correctly. So 2011, you came back and this whole thing played out, and you didn't actually get to your first location till 2014. And I understand that part of your business plan initially was to have multiple locations.
Yes.
And that's another interesting experience that you had there.
Yeah, so as soon as we did the Lekki store, it was really like things just exploded. Like literally day one, a few people came by, day two, a few people came by. By the weekend, we're sold out everything that we're planned for a month. You do a plan, like, okay, this is the store. Let's say you even imagine you're going to be doing sales of $5 and you budgeted that, okay, all these products are going to last you a month. And literally they were done in a week.
Wow.
And we were just like, wait, what is going on? Like, where did all these people come from? And then we realized that it was from all the work we've done through the 3 years, going to all the catering jobs, and people already really, really knew the brand. So by the time we opened, they were just excited out, oh, what? Sweetkiwi had a location. And I was just so overwhelmed. Like the day we did the launch, I never forget. I was so stressed. So I was having an out of body experience because I'd been working like maybe 3-4 weeks without any sleep, just trying to get the place open. A few people came, and I remember seeing someone off outside for the first time just to see them off to their car. And I remember looking outside, and the cars were all the way almost to the Admiralty Gate. And I was
Wow.
just like, what is happening? Like, I didn't even know I knew this many people. And I remember my dad saying the same thing, like, oh, my friend said that. Where does your daughter know all these people from? And I think that was it was such a great validation for us. And I feel like that work that you put in the beginning, it's never lost. It's never, it pays off in the end, because when we did have a location, people showed up,
Right.
and, it really built us into an even stronger brand. So I think we then decided that, okay, well, we're doing so well. Why don't we open another location just so that, we can start to grow very quickly. So we decided to open a location in the Palms, and then in Victoria Island as well. But the thing with that was that the only thing we ended up doing was cannibalizing our own customers that was already coming to
Hmm.
phase one. Because then what I realized, or what I've learned now, is that in Nigeria, there's very few people with dispensable income. So once again, understanding the market that you're operating in, it's not a US where you can be in Virginia and have like 5 locations or 10 locations, because Virginia is that big. And
Right.
not only is it's not even about size. It's just that everyone around the block earns enough money where buying a little treat is not a big deal. It's something that they don't even give an afterthought to. But in Nigeria, outside of certain locations,
Hmm.
um, people think that they can't afford certain products, or it's not a necessity. And once your product is not a need, it's very hard for you to be investing in full-on stores that you kind of multiply. And so I started to learn, and that's a part thing about business. You have to keep learning, you have to keep adapting, and the best lessons are the ones that you make, so you understand it. You
Hmm.
understand how to avoid such pitfalls in the future. So we opened the Palms. I mean, the Palms did well, but not well enough for what we were paying in rent, because the rent
Right.
is really, really expensive. And VI as well, it was really expensive, but we realized was that the customers that were already coming to Lekki store, because the same customers on the island are the same customers that will come from Victoria Island or that will come from Ikoyi were now split and going to other locations. So now we've made even more investment, but income was being reduced because it was the same customers. We hadn't widened our customer base.
Right. Right. Interesting. So I was just wondering, what's the idea behind the name Sweet Kiwi?
So sweet kiwi is it's mostly kiwis are sour, right? So a sweet
Right.
kiwi is something that is very unforgettable because it's different. You don't come across, they're very rare. It's very different. And one of the reasons why we called it a sweet kiwi, I called it Sweet Kiwi, was because number one, it was one of my favorite songs from Maroon 5. And when I understood what it meant, I felt like this was the perfect name, because we were the only ones that was doing a clean label frozen yogurt. If you look at the labels of a lot of the frozen yogurt companies, even the top ones, you realize that there were a lot of things. It wasn't really that, it was different from ice cream, because a lot of people, it was yogurt, but still the sugar content was so high. A lot of things that went into the product shouldn't have been there.
Hmm.
So from the jump, that focus on having a healthy product was what I thought made us really different and
Hmm.
very, very unique. And I just thought that this name perfectly, covered everything that we were trying to say
Hmm.
that we were.
So how did you source your ingredients in Nigeria?
That was it was quite difficult. We did a lot of importing at the time because it was very hard to
Right.
find local suppliers. But finally we found a guy who would make the yogurt for us.
Okay.
So he was kind of like a co-packer in a way. He would not make the frozen yogurt, but he would make the cultured yogurt.
Okay.
And one of the things I love about him, and I'm very happy to say, because I had this impression that Nigerians were not reliable. You couldn't, if they said they were coming on Monday, expect them in 2 weeks, basically. But he really surprised me, because we worked with him since 2011 when we opened, and we still work with him today. And
Fantastic.
he's never late. He's never even an hour. If he says it's coming on Monday, he comes on Monday. And
Hmm.
we've worked with him, we've grown with him. As our demand grew, his demand grew as well, because he continued to produce for us. And I would never forget, in 2015, when he finally decided to open a bank account, we gave him his reference. And that really made me happy to see them grow. The truth is that there are opportunities, but we as well need to ask ourselves the value that we're bringing, how are we running our businesses, because that's what's going to determine how valuable you are to a customer. So if I had an option between some fancy schmancy company that was going to do this for us and him, I would choose him because I know he's reliable.
Right, right. I heard that your business experienced some slight pivot, to put it mildly. And you're here in the US. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Congratulations. So how did you come about setting up Sweetkiwi in the US?
Sweetkiwi in the US was, I would also want, one of the things I would like to reiterate is that I feel like I'm a believer, I'm a Christian, and I really believe in that when God puts a dream in your heart, he has a plan for you. Sometimes when you're not in tune with that, you don't know where God is taking you. So things start to happen and you're wondering and you're like, oh, why is all these things happening? I don't understand it. I feel like sometimes if you really go back to the source, you find out that there's a greater plan for everything that's happening. And I've always felt that with Sweetkiwi, everything was just God given, because I've had a path that a lot of people don't have or haven't found as easy. I've, been at places and come out with things that people don't come out with. I really didn't expect to survive Nigeria, because I promise you, everyone who ever went to uni with me, the first message they sent to me is that I don't understand. How did you survive Nigeria? I'm just the most, I was the chillest person in school. I wasn't aggressive. I wasn't anything that you would think would survive. I was a hard worker. Let's not get that right, because I think that goes into what translates into being a successful business person. You have to be a hard worker. You have to be able to put in the work. So some of the foundations were already there, but that staying power, just sticking it through a lot of the ups and the downs, I think. So with the US company, at the time, I'd been suffering a lot of health issues, and I'd gone through a health issue. Actually, I'd gone through a miscarriage, which was really bad in Nigeria, and it was because the doctor that was treating me handled the issue badly. I'm O negative, and he didn't talk to me about the O rhesus negative situation, and it turned out to be a really bad experience. Where by the time we figured out what was going on, it was really bad, and I had to be in the US a lot for medical care, and just wasn't also in a good place mentally. It was really hard to run my business, so I was just not in a good place. It was just like a really devastating loss for me. And this goes back to entrepreneurs realizing that you're also human. There's also the other parts that nobody sees. Sometimes it's always just business, 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 and no one knows what you're going through, on the home front or personally. And I feel like a lot of people don't talk about mental health.
Right.
With entrepreneurship, which is a big deal, because I feel like you're constantly under stress. You're dealing with anxiety because you're working on something you don't know if it's going to happen. You're constantly dealing with all these things. So for me, I felt like after that happened to me, I literally had a break where I just was in America. I wasn't doing anything. I would just wake up and watch Game of Thrones all day. I didn't want to run my business. I really didn't want to. I didn't have a choice. They would bug me about little things. I would respond on WhatsApp, but I mentally wasn't there. I wasn't there. And I just had signed out somehow. And I didn't even realize it. I just checked out. And I really didn't feel like talking to people a lot. I was very isolated. I isolated myself. And I was in Dallas, and I remember a lot of my friends that I worked with in city, they were just really concerned. They were just like, you don't come out of the house, you don't talk to anyone, So at this time, my friend was a manager at JP Morgan. And so she was just like, no, I want you to apply for this job. They're hiring my department. I feel like it'd be good for you to have somewhere to go every day. And just, she just felt like I was going through a depression. I didn't agree. And so that's how I ended up working for JP Morgan in 2016. Yeah, it was. People don't know this. I think this is the first time I've ever said this.
Yeah, I don't even recall reading that anywhere.
No, I've not talked about this, but I decided to talk about it because these are real things that happen to real people.
Yeah.
No one understood it. My dad thought I was just, he didn't get it. He's just like, do you realize that you're earning salary that you could pay yourself? You have a business that's doing this revenues in Nigeria, even more than this, but you're in America doing what? Like, I don't understand. I didn't understand it either, but I felt like every day I felt a bit better because I was now forced to do something. So I had to go to work every morning. I had to be there till a certain time. So whether I liked it or not, I had to interact with people. Someone had to come ask me about something I was working on. And it was really difficult, but I just saw myself being more, just say happy every day, or just, coming out of myself and just also being around my old friends. Just them saying, oh, let's go to lunch, and just seeing them every day. I felt like it took me out of the space I was in. And I remember 7 months down the line, I woke up and I was thinking, what are you doing? Seriously, I was just like, what are you doing here? Like, what is going on? No, I'm seriously, and that's why I keep talking to people about mental health, because you can't, like, I can't explain it. I can't tell you what I was doing there, but I was serious about it. I was waking up every morning, driving to work, coming back home, 7 months. And my business was just like, my mom was helping with my business, my dad was helping my business, because I really was just disconnected from it. And I finally woke up one day and I was just like, but what am I doing here? What am I really doing here? I have a whole business. And I put in my resignation, and that was it. I was back into being the CEO of Sweetkiwi again, and just kind of trying to figure out where to go from there with the business. So we ended up moving out to the DC area, me and my family, and just being here. I'd gone into I was testing out a new recipe, and I'd gone into a store in Georgetown because I noticed that they were opening a yoga shop. And I was going to ask the guy and just say to him, oh, hey, can I come test out my new recipe here and use one of your machines? But he's like, I know you. And I was just thinking, okay, you can't know me because, it's not possible. And then he's like, oh, I know you. And then he proceeds to tell me how, he had looked up a few yoga shops and he read a few articles about me. I was just like, oh, wow, that's pretty interesting. And he asked me to work with him on starting the yoga shop. So we started a yoga shop called Acai Berry in Georgetown on M Street. And, that really excited me. And I realized how much I'd missed my own business because I was so into it. I was so into like putting everything together. And that was really great. I felt like it really woke me up. And after I'd put that in place, I went back to Nigeria and kept working on just like getting Sweetkiwi back to where it needed to be, just working on the plans that I had for the brand. And somehow, when I came back to the US, I just thought, you know what, I can start doing some catering events here now that I split my time between the two countries. And when I was looking for a space where we could start doing a few catering events from,
Right.
I found a space called a shared kitchen called Union Kitchen. And after they tasted our products, they loved it, and they asked us if we could apply for the accelerator program to create a CPG product.
What's
And
CPG?
so that's consumer packaged goods. So it's something that you can package and put in a grocery store, basically. So we applied for the accelerator. We did all the interviews, and they informed us that we were accepted into the accelerator. So we started the accelerator. So this is another thing. So I come back from Nigeria. I was here, and we were pregnant again. I was pregnant again, and then just before the accelerator was about to start, it was starting in September, I lost the baby again.
Oh dear.
And I remember there was a deadline to sign the acceptance for the accelerator, and you couldn't sign it online. You had to sign it in person. And I remember still being in the hospital, and I had to leave just to go sign the documents. These are the things that you go through as an entrepreneur, because we had a deadline. And if we missed the deadline, we couldn't be a part of the accelerator. So I remember with all the plasters on my hand and the doctor just kind of patching me up, I took an Uber and I went there and I signed it and just tried to keep it moving. And, but this time I was determined not to fall into a rabbit hole.
Right.
I was just determined to keep my head above water. So I started the accelerator in September. And, I kept working on refining the product. But one of the things I insisted on doing was going to Nigeria for the rest of the year because I felt like Nigeria was a place where we were so busy that it didn't give me the chance to fall down a rabbit hole. And I remember taking everything I felt, just the angst, and putting it into work. And especially because December is a big time for us in terms of catering.
Right.
I just put all the energy into that, and we had the best December we've ever had. I think we did every single event that was happening in town. Yeah, because I refused to let myself process anything else but work, and it was really, I wouldn't say it was the best. It's the best approach, but it was certainly it was good for the company, but good for me as a person, I wouldn't say. But then I came back in February and the product was ready to go. We're ready to launch. Just because of the seasons, it was a cold season and it's better to launch just before spring. So we'd agreed to launch it at the end of February, which we did. So we launched the products. We were in 3 grocery stores that Union Kitchen had. And
It's
we were
February of this year.
February of 2019.
February of 2019.
So we're in 3 grocery stores. We launched in 3 grocery stores, the Union Kitchen grocery stores. And then every day we kept pitching to new stores and getting into new stores. And we're just kind of going to all the local grocery stores in the DC area and pitching to the buyers and getting into those stores. And that's how we started growing. We initially pitched to the Whole Foods team in February. They had a lot of concerns with the packaging, and they talked to us about what they had concerns with. Well, I still hope that we would get in, but I didn't hear back from them. So I tried to reach out to the person and say, hey, I'm just following up. And, she was really nice. They were really kind. And she just kind of talked me through what they had concerns with. And I decided to go back to work, working on the things they had issues with. And I remember going to all the different stores to also pitch to the actual buyers within the store and just trying to get whatchamacallit, I'm sorry. Just get some type of approval from them because that also goes a long way, get an endorsement from them as well. And that actually helped us go a long way with when we went back to pitch to the team and knowing that we had all these endorsements from a lot of the local stores saying that they were willing to create space for us. That made such a difference for us as well. And fast forward to December 2019, we pitched again to the team at Whole Foods. And then by January 2nd or 3rd, we received a notification saying that we were in. And that was just the most amazing email that I'd gotten this year.
Wow. Wow, that is just amazing. And then I've noticed as well that you've received a lot of grants and awards. So just talk to us a little about access to finance and your experience. I mean, you've gone from setting up a business in Nigeria to now, setting up a business in the US. And if you can just talk to us a little about your experience with accessing finance and what you feel can be done differently on the continent, based on what you've experienced here.
I think that with access to finance, being a woman and also being like an African entrepreneur, there's always a lot of negativity attached to taking money from someone else to do your business just because of experiences that people have had in the past where in Nigeria, contracts are not enforceable. There's a lot of gaps in our legal system that makes it really difficult for you to, want to do business with someone else or have a partner. There's all these complaints. And what I've also noticed is that there's not a lot of education as well. I feel like in the start of my journey, if I'd had enough education from the time that we were able to launch our first flagship store, or we were even able to show enough traction and show enough revenues, even from catering, at that point in any normal country, we should have had access to better finance, better funding, better investors. But there's not enough education telling you at this point in time, you need to start fundraising because fundraising takes years. And by the time you need the money, you're not going to get it because you didn't start early. You can't start fundraising when you need the money,
right?
Because people need to be familiar with your business. And that's one of the things that I've learned. Start early, start from day one, just meeting people, understanding what they're looking for. It takes a long time for you to even meet an investor that you have you kind of feel is on the same wavelength as you. You're going to meet a lot of investors, but not everyone has the same passion or drive or understands your vision. So it's kind of like dating. You know, you're dating different guys, and then it takes you a while to find the one. That's why it's such a big deal. That's why you have a wedding, because it's a big deal to find someone that you gel with. Same thing when you're courting investors. You need to find someone who understands what you're trying to achieve and is there with you and understands, because there's always going to be that gap between passion and finances.
Right.
And making sure, so you need someone who understands so that you guys can have a seamless relationship. And unfortunately, I think that one of the things that needs to be done in Nigeria is creating more opportunities for women to access financing. And not only that, I feel like we need to revisit a lot of the ways that funds are dispersed, especially federal government grants. One of the things I found out is that, you know, a lot of international businesses get government grants that they shouldn't have access to. A lot of international businesses get access to BOI funds, Bank of Industry funds, that should really be for local Nigerian industry, in people who are creating industry in Nigeria. And a lot of these local businesses don't even have access to that money.
Right.
You know, we need to have a clear pathway. There's so much money coming into Nigeria. The IFC, the World Bank has so many programs, but how do you access it? Especially when they go through all these other development banks, and then you go to the development bank to access money, and they give you these difficult requirements, and no one who actually needs the money gets the money. Everything is all, you know, covered in secrecy, and you know, you never know who gets the money, and there are no case studies as to who has used the money. Like, who's a normal person that just woke up and started a business and has accessed BOI funds and been able to grow their business to where they're really successful and they're really stable.
Right.
You know, there needs to be some shame about that. Like, we need to start supporting our own homegrown brands and businesses to be able to grow. So in contrast, open up in the US, we've had access to so much funding, like so much, not just funding, but education.
Right.
As well. There are local DC programs that we've done where we were giving funding to even help build our credit. As you use the money and you pay back, your credit is building. You know, they test you with $2,000 and they test you with more. I remember trying to buy machinery. When we had to buy machinery in Nigeria, we had to save for it because you had to pay everything cash down. Buy machinery here, we're able to get a loan to buy the machine and pay maybe $100 every month, you know, till we can pay it off. So ease of doing business is at 1,000%.
Wow.
You know, and even in the midst of COVID, whereas Nigeria had a COVID relief package, which very little entrepreneurs have even been able to access, and even the ones who have gotten the funds got only 10% of what was promised.
Wow.
You know, whereas in the US, there was a PPE money where you could basically support your staff and ensure that they were getting paid regardless. The loans from small business, the SBA, there were also a lot of grants, and I've taken advantage of those grants. One of the things I've learned to do is that if you're able to tell a really solid story where they can see the impact that you're making in your community,
right,
able to win a grant and get the support. So Visa supported us with $10,000. The Sarah Blakely Spanx Foundation supported us for another $5,000. We did a pitch with the Black Girls Ventures, and we won another $10,000 in addition to the money that we raised on the platform. So altogether, it came to about $12,000. And
wow,
we've raised a total of over $27,000 at this time. And we still have other grants that we're still in contending for. So, and I'm very positive at the end of this grant season, we probably would have raised almost $50,000, you know.
excellent.
And so I think that there's so many ways and there's so many opportunities. In Nigeria, no one's giving out grants. No one's supporting the small businesses. Even the big companies who you do business with don't support the small guys. They're willing to take your money, they're willing to have you bank with them, but what support do they actually provide to entrepreneurs in times of need like this? Most entrepreneurs have experienced business closures over 3 to 4 months.
Wow.
How are you supporting the entrepreneurs to ensure that they can recover and they can bounce back? Because a lot of the grants that we received have really helped us to scale. We're able to introduce new products to help our business survive past COVID. So we're introducing a new granola product, because granola is something that we've always made, even in Nigeria. It's a topping that we've always used in our stores.
Right.
And we have a unique way we make our granola. And we're now launching a granola product next month.
Okay.
We're launching our popsicles sometime in February next year. And that's what we've been able to use the grant money for. And so now we're not in a rush to look for investors or to get into bed with the wrong investors,
Right.
because we've had other streams and other sources of income.
So I was going to ask, how is it possible for you to continue to run the business in Nigeria and build this brand here in the
I would
US?
say it comes down to structures, just being able to create structures that can stand the test. It hasn't always been perfect, but it's always a continuous work. So you start to see me being aware, being able to see what's working with the structure, what's not working, what needs to change, what can we fix? And it's been good. I think just the US market where things work on time. If my distributor says they're coming to pick up on tomorrow, I don't need to be there. I just need to have the pallet waiting in the freezer. They pick up, there's never any issues. This has been going on for a whole year. And my team knows when production is. Things are better structured where you have more of your time as an entrepreneur compared to the Nigerian market. And I think that just building out that structure where my team knows that this is what those policies, this is what drives the business, this is what you're meant to do. I think technology has helped a lot. We have WhatsApp groups. I see what the store looks like every day before they open. I see I'm involved in everything. I doubt there's anything that you'll tell me that's going on in Lagos that I'm not really aware of. I'm
Right.
always up to date on those things. But I think putting in those structures and understanding that you have to keep tweaking and you have to keep working. The truth is that as an entrepreneur, if you're not able to be away from your business without IFund, then you don't have a business. Because the truth
Right.
is, when something happens to you, can your business stand the test of time? So if you
Right.
weren't available today or something happened to you, knock on wood. But if it did happen, what happens to your business? So many entrepreneurs that have gone through this, they tell you, oh, the owner died and then the business packed up. Can your business run without you? It's the biggest test of any
Right.
structure or anything that has been built. And that's what I was saying. And so we have manuals for running everything at Sweetkiwi. Everything, how to open the door, how to serve a customer, how to speak, how to open the gate. You open it from left to right. You have to be that detailed because someone else is going to come into the business. Imagine you weren't there and someone comes into the business. Can they successfully run the business with these manuals? Those are the things you need to
That's
be
interesting.
testing and you need to keep tweaking and you need to keep working on, because you can't always, if you're looking at, except you're trying to build a mom and pop shop, but if you're trying to build a multi-million-dollar business, you can't be the only person that runs it. It can't depend solely
Right.
on you. It's impossible.
That's fantastic. So what have you learned from this experience?
I've learned it's a lot of things. I would say the first thing I've learned is the God factor. I would say that committing everything that you do into the hands of the Lord makes such a difference, because He does direct your path. He does speak to you. He does tell you what's right. And, this is the visions I've had for you, or this is the path. That has been a big thing for me. I felt like I've not always done that. I've always I'm a Christian, but it's busy. I wake up in the morning, oh, I have to get to the store, not praying, not speaking to God. We're signing contracts, we're not speaking to God. We're doing all these things. I felt like that path is so important, because as soon as I started doing that, I've seen like a massive transformation in my business and just like dedicating things to God. And even in the process of fundraising, just like moving you away from the wrong
Mm,
investors as well and directing you to people who are aligned with
mm,
your purpose has made a difference. I think also being able to tell an authentic story and have an impact on your community, and understanding how your blessings are because you're meant to
right.
bless other people. So you can't have a business that's just for making money. Your business has to have a wider impact on not just you, but you have to have a community at the center of everything that you're doing. How does your business impact your community? How does it impact people? How does it changing people's lives? How are we making a difference? And that's one of the things that I'd be very passionate about. I talked to you about what my passions are from the beginning. So with Sweetkiwi in Nigeria, one of the things that we've always tried to do was help people. We always fundraise within the store. I remember when we were celebrating our 5th anniversary, we bought over 50 canes for people who were blind and needed white canes, because that's a big deal where people cannot get white canes. And we did that with Nikki Lauye, who is a spokesperson for that. We always try to find ways where we can support women and children. At Sweetkiwi in Nigeria, we hire over 70%
Right.
women. And we train, we develop. My current operations manager started as the inventory person. She's done so much training and has grown to the position of operation managers. We believe in women, and we think that, when you invest in women, you're investing in more than just that woman. You're investing in the whole community. Awesome. In comparison to when you're investing in a man, a woman is more family centered, and so it goes beyond that woman. And we're really excited about how, as our businesses are growing, how we continue to support the women in our community. We're very passionate about training women. I've been passionate about a program for widowed women to support them with training, learning a skill, helping them start their own businesses, and creating an avenue where they can sell those products to raise money for their family. Not only that, not everybody can be an entrepreneur, and I understand that. And I feel like we need to create more jobs that these women can do. And so we're working on backward integrating and creating our factory in Nigeria so that we're becoming a full-on creamery where we're going to be creating, dairy, consumer packaged good products. And one of the things I'm excited about for this factory is to grow into a place where we hire 100% women working in the factory and supporting women who are most vulnerable, who are most at need, the ones who have children. And I think in the long term, we're looking at how we can educate their children and, start to turn things around for these families. So going beyond just being a successful business and a profit-making business, but reinvesting into our communities and making, the environment a better place for the people that are living it, and giving back what has been given to us and sowing that seed into our communities. I think that has been the biggest awakening for me, my journey, to understand that I wasn't just put here just to sell frozen yogurt, because that goes beyond that, but to impact people's lives and to make that difference.
Wow, this has been an excellent conversation. I normally end by asking what's next for you, and it feels like you've described some of that, unless you have anything else to add.
I think, that's what's next. Just continue to grow. I think what we want to do next is to show that Sweetkiwi goes beyond just a company that's making yogurt or making products. We want to be heavily involved in turning around the experience of women across the world. I feel Nigerian women are abused every day. They're not giving opportunities. We want to put more women in more positions of power and change our communities, change our environments. And, we want to grow. We want to be that Nigerian brand who's been the first to cross over from Africa into international markets. So we're looking at the Europe market next and looking to grow into the UK market first. And I'm really excited because for me, the UK is like my second home. I can't wait. My history in the UK, I started working when I was really young. My first job was at Harrods. I ended up, by the time I left the UK, I was working at Amex International and also at Asda. So I'm so excited. I'm like, the day that my products are on the shelf at Asda is going to be the happiest day, because I remember how many times I stocked the shelves, how many times I checked people out on the checkouts, and I can't wait. I'm so excited about things like that. It's going to be a full circle journey for me.
That's awesome. Wish you all the best, Ehime. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Akego.
That was Ehime Eigbe-Akindele, founder and CEO, Sweetkiwi. Her story is a testament to the fact that our brands can travel. Made in Africa for the world. Representation matters, and so we continue to celebrate women like Ehime, who are blazing the trail and showing what's possible. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on iTunes or on Apple Podcasts. It will help us greatly. I'm Akego Koye, and you have been listening to African Business Stories.